discussion, managing your testing toolbox. I'm going to introduce the speakers very soon. But first of all, I just want to remind you all to get into Slido and ask all your questions so that we can ask them. So do go over on the tab to Slido, and we're going to talk about all of those questions that you've got, and you can vote on them as well. I've already seeded Slido with some of the questions that we've got there, so hopefully you'll have some ones that you want to vote on or add as well, and I'll pick ones to ask people. Any unanswered questions will be added to a club post later at the end of the session, so we should be able to see that. I think that my video is a bit waffy at the moment, so I'm really sorry about that, but hopefully you can hear me.
Yes.
So I'm going to introduce our awesome speakers for this. Oh, is it completely gone?
He's left. He's coming back, I believe.
But I should be back now. So yes, make sure to get onto Slido. And I'm going to introduce our speakers for this discussion. So first of all, we've got Sarah Hutchins, who is a quality strategist with more than 10 years of experience, who's been creating Ruby-based tools, which is really exciting. She spoke at We Are Devs in 2022 on quality strategy and also about cheese. I believe it was her Swiss cheese model, but we can ask about that later. Then we've got Ibronka, who is a senior quality assurance engineer with 5 years of diverse Q&A experience. She has raised more than 512 individuals from no experience to be professional test engineers, and has been using so many tools and frameworks, APIs, databases, microservices, web user interfaces, mobile testing. All of those things are stuff that she's got under her belt, so perfect for this discussion. And then last we got Trisha, who is a senior engineer at Dracoon. She's an automation enthusiast, a browser stack champion, and she was named in one of the 125 awesome testers by Agile Testing Days. She's a Postman supernova and an AWS community builder member. So these are three people with some opinions about tooling and all the types of things we can do with tools. So let's welcome to the stage. Big round of applause, everyone. Yay, welcome, 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 everyone. How are you? Are you all excited to be here?
Sure.
Brilliant. Right. So what I'm going to do is I will we'll ask you the questions, and feel free to jump in with your thoughts and opinions for this discussion. So I'll start off with an easy one of how do you stay aware of tools and what tools are available?
Okay. Does anybody wants to go first? All right, so let me just go ahead. Thank you so much for having us here, Callum, and of course, thank you, my Sarah and Trisha. How do I get to know about the latest tool? I would say community. That's the first step. You always get to know the latest tool by different communities. And secondly, for the tools that you are using, you get to get updates. You get to know about what's the latest thing, what has been updated, what has been removed. And of course, based on research, because from time to time you want to personal learning, personal development, you want to upgrade on what you know. So you get to do some research, and then you realize that, oh, there is something better that can do what you're actually using. So yes, these are few ways I think you can easily get to know about the latest tools.
I'd say for me, it's a little bit more of a difficult question because, well, obviously there's staying up to date by keeping in contact with community, hearing about people, seeing what people are excited about. I don't go looking for tools unless I have a problem that I'm solving.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that trying to stay too in tune with what the latest tools are tends to be turn into, I have a solution and now I'm trying to fit it into problems.
Yeah.
So for me, what happens is like when I'm actually talking to somebody and in the conversation will come across for this, they are actually using this particular tool. Let's say for the UI, there was a new tool which they came across. It could be Cypress, it could so that's where I'll come across in the talk with different people in the community, or it could be when we are actually comparing the tools in our day-to-day work. We are actually choosing, okay, these are the certain challenges we are having at the moment, and we need to do a comparison and onboard new tool. Or it could be something when we are actually having a discussion inside our company, saying that there's a platform team who is coming across and evaluate. If you're in the conference, there would be a booth of different sets of tools. So those are the different places wherein I'll come across. Or at the conference, you will see some talk around some tools. Or like this, if we have a panel discussion wherein you can come across different tools and people are showcasing them or something like that. So those are the various options I would say when I come across different tools.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. It sounds like dealing with the community, engaging with the community really helps you to stay aware of tools. And then whilst you're finding out and learning more about tools, or learning for yourself when you've got a problem to solve, how is it that you can introduce new tools into your teams? What techniques and methods have you found have been really successful there?
I can take this.
Yeah.
So when I actually talk to our team, and first we will find out the problem in the deeper, like say somebody is saying the UI test is flaky, but we will understand what was the root cause of it, why it is flaky, and why would we need to have a real need for switching from one tool to another tool, why we couldn't solve in this particular tool. First, we will investigate deeper about the problem. Once we have investigated deeper about the problem and this particular tool is not solving us or not helping us, that's where we'll go about different tools. And when we are going about different tools, we'll identify what are the knowledge existing in our team. Can we switch to different languages? Can we switch to different frameworks? Or what are different things where like the other QAs can support, the developers can support, whoever in the team can support us to have a better testing. Once we have got those, that's where we will go across and choose for that particular language, that particular framework. What are the, like, let's say, other top tools or comparatively tools, like in Google, if you search, let's say for Selenium, what is a comparatively tool, then you will get the options for Playwrights, Cypress, or any other tools, let's say. And that's where you will start evaluating based on the speed, based on the reliability, based on the efficiency. So based on the community support, based on the open source, a lot of different factors over there, you will actually evaluate it for yourself. And that's where you will think about it. Okay, let's say I've written this test, and this test is actually, when I'm executing it, the same test with Playwright, it is a login functionality. It takes 5 seconds for me. But when I run it on Playwright, it takes 2 seconds. But when I actually run it with Selenium, it's again taking me a 2 second. So then I have a 2 seconds over here as a Playwright and Selenium. Then I'll go for the other factors over there and I'll judge upon that. And that's where I'll evaluate on several other factors and see which particular tool is helping me the most in my team. And that's how I go about it.
Brilliant. Thank you, Trisha. Do either the other two of you have any sort of thoughts on introducing new teams to tools to a team?
Yeah, so if we're in the introduction stage already, then I'm assuming we've already passed the evaluation stage, so I'm going to skip that. And if we're introducing, that means we're either trialing, so small group is going to be working with the tool, or we're at the rollout. So if we're in the trialing stage, usually I'm actually working with whatever team is part of the trial directly. And usually for the trials, I'm picking people who are most interested in the new tool because they're the ones experiencing the most problems. So they're the ones who are most likely to be most enthusiastic about getting rid of these issues. So we'll be working hand in hand to make sure the tool actually meets their needs, is not the worst thing ever to use, and basically keeping an eye on how is it that the teams are adjusting to the tool? How is the tool actually meeting their needs? And if everything looks good, we move from trial to rollout stage where we go to the rest of the company and be like, hey, look at this cool thing we're doing. Don't the rest of you want this? Please come get it, because this is actually probably going to be required in a couple months.
Super.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, so just to add to what Sarah mentioned, like, I mean, we already understand the challenges. So um, I would definitely get, like she mentioned, they get the people that are actually very interested in this too. The first approach for me, just to keep it simple, okay, you want us to use this tool, just check it out and let's see what happens. Especially to those that are really enthusiastic about the tool. Then when they use it, probably for like a week or to do a particular task, let's hear the challenges, let's know. We should be ready to answer the tough questions about this feature. And then it's now for us to, so by the time we are going to the general team, it's not just for us to tell everybody that this is a tool, let's use it. It's not just about sharing the feature, but sharing it with example. Let them know what you have used it for and what is the advantage over what they are using. Because people, if I'm currently used to using Selenium and Java, I've been used to it, all this, and then all of a sudden I should use Cypress. I'm like, okay, why am I using Cypress? I want to know what the advantage is over what I'm currently using. So it's best to share it with the example and then get your team member to use it on a free trial. Like she also mentioned, get them to use it on a free trial before you now go ahead to use it for paid. And of course, when you're going to the paid version, you also need to understand the company's budget. You need to understand the company's budget and be sure it's something that can be used by everybody and will be useful to everybody. So yeah, that's just my contribution.
That's brilliant. Thank you. And something you brought up there, Ivanka, about moving from one tool to another. You said about from Selenium to Cypress. When do you know that it's the right move to switch tools? Like, what indicators do you look for, and how do you decide that it's right to make a change, like from this tool to this tool?
Yeah, I would say let the challenge do the speaking, because, so for example, we want to do the essence of doing automation, is to lessen the effort of regression, right? And then you have got it to a stage that your regression test is now taking like 30 minutes to run, 1 hour to run. Nobody's going to wait for that, because before you get the error feedback, before you want, when you start getting to a bottleneck, it's time to go and upgrade, or it's time for you to change to something better, because there will always be something better to the bottleneck you have. So once I get to a bottleneck, once I know that we need to solve a blocker, or I know that we need to move and upgrade. So for example, I know that also based on the number of people in the team, the capacity of the resources in the team, in a situation where I have just 5 testers in my team, and we have this different up to 4, 5, 6 projects that we want to work on and we want to automate, and probably they are relatively new and they are not so much of an automation tester. At that point, it won't be wise for me to start teaching them Java, Selenium, WebDriver, and all of those things. I'll possibly want to use a tool that they can easily understand when I train them on, and they can easily get to use. Now compare it to, okay, I have a team that has been with me for like 1 year, 2 years, 3 years in the team, and we are more like 10, 20 in the team, and these are automation engineers. At this point, yes, I can spin up a project and I'm like, okay, this cluster of people can pick up the automation project. So like I would say, let the challenge do the inquisitiveness, right? Let the challenge make you know it's time for you to pick up something, especially when the current tool you are using is no longer fulfilling the purpose. You are doing automation to reduce the time. If the time is not getting longer, then it's time to upgrade, or it's time to check up on something else.
Thank you. Are there any thoughts from either the other two about when to switch tools?
I would say what happens is like when we are actually changing our software stack from, let's say it was in a monolithic structure and we are coming to the modern structure. And that's where, like, since we are changing our whole software stack, that's where I would think of going closer to the modern architecture, and that's where I would need a more tools, and that's where I would start evaluating about the tools. That could be one place. And the another situation wherein I would think of changing the tools in our team is like when the whole team is starting new, or the existing team which was there, and they have revamped it, and we are coming up with the whole new team over there. Like the existing folks have been left, and there is no KT or something like that. Or it could be a situation wherein, like what happened in Corona, many of the people were leaving the companies, or they have been just being actually made redundant, and that's where whoever is left and they don't know about anything about those tools, they can start it from scratch. It would be very easy for them than to go through something which is written over there, which they don't know, and they need to spend a lot of time. So those are the different scenarios wherein I would think of actually coming across with new tools and quickly start setting up and helping the team on whatever the new tools I know about it.
Thank you.
And then
Sarah?
for me, there's usually two scenarios that initiate a tool change. The first one being I describe myself as a quality strategist. So from the strategy point of view, if a layer in our quality strategy is no longer working, it's usually a sign we need to do either a tool change or something else. But a tool change is usually on the table there. And examples of layers not working are things like, oh, our tests are taking an hour and we can't fix this by just changing the test. There's something going on. Or we're changing the architecture. That means our layers totally need to be revamped then. And then the second scenario is when a development team or someone else in the organization gets so fed up with a tool that they go out on their own and find a replacement. And they're like, look, this is better. Please, dear God, let us switch it. That's also usually a sign that it's time to change the tool.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Hopefully they speak up before they reach that point of, oh my God, I'll just do it myself, but they don't know it. Or even if they do speak up, sometimes we just don't have the time. So when someone is willing to put in that effort, it's like, oh, thank Christ.
So it sounds like for all three of you, there are different triggers that catalyze basically these things, whether it be something's not working or you've just got the opportunity to do things as well. No, that's really great. And then let's say in a situation, so Simon's asked a really good question here. Let's say in a situation you've decided to switch tools, but the best one is a paid for tool, or somebody, Sarah, has done the research and they've looked and they've trialed something, but it's a paid for tool and their free trial is coming to an end. How do you convince the person with the budget to pay for the best tool if the best tool is a paid for one?
Price analysis. Usually you can quantify how much time you spent with the old tool. And I can almost guarantee you, if someone's hated the old tool enough that they're trying out a free tool on their own initiative, they probably spent a hell of a lot of time with that old tool. You can quantify those hours they spent. You can turn that into a price and be like, look at how much money we save by paying these people to do a bunch of this stuff for us.
Yeah. Okay, so to also add to what Sarah said, let the comparison do the talking. It's free trial, but we also need to let the budget holder knows that with free trial you won't get access to all the wonderful features that we should be using, right? There will definitely be features that you would never have access to on a free trial. And then secondly, there is a reason why we went for the tool in the first place. Present a case to the person, let them understand that, okay, when we're using this, these were the issues that we had. These were blockers that the team is complaining of. In fact, in most cases, I even try to interpret it to a stage of when we are using this tool, right? It was taking us 2 days to complete a test, which now relates to 2 days of delay in delivery. And 2 days of delay in delivery means that 2 days of money being wasted in the market where the customers is not using the product. So when they understand how much they will lose by not dropping this token, it's very obvious for them to go ahead and pick, something. But again, I'd always make sure that you pick a tool that you know that there was a challenge in the first place that it is solving. So that way it is very easy for you to present the case to any budget holder. Yeah.
For me, I would actually go with my manager and I'll explain him saying that, let's say, look, we had this problem, and to overcome this problem, we actually gone through analysis of different tools. And since we analyzed it, this is a paid tool, and this paid tool is helping us to overcome most of the challenges. And if we use this tool, let's say we could hire a list resources in our team. It will not over budget over that, like you need to spend every month on resource a salary, or it could be on their maintenance and every other thing. We could save over there, but we can spend on this tool, saying that it will help us. And if we spend on this tool, we would not find the bugs in the production. It will help us to save that company image. It will help us to save that rework from the developers and things like that. That's how I will go and convince my manager, saying that uh, look, we this is a really good tool we can actually use, because we are not spending extra amount of money on our resources, hiring, training them, getting over those, than actually using the speed tool.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. And just with that in mind, how do you go about balancing the need for these commercial tools that you pay for versus open source tools? Like, in your experience, like, what's that balance been like?
For me, it tends to come down to what we have resource-wise. Like, if we have the budget but not a lot of people, I'm probably going to favor more commercial things like software as a service tools. But if we have, say, like a platform team or a DevOps team who's interested in helping assist and maintain these sorts of things, I am probably going to favor the more open source tools because they give you more flexibility generally.
Yeah, true. Like, I think I would just go with what Sarah said. No need to add to it. It's just fine. Yeah, because that's definitely the approach I would use as well.
In my opinion, I would actually look for what problem we are solving with which tool in general, like saying that, okay, if I'm actually going for a commercial tool, does it give me a community support? Does it give me accessibility? Like, it's having a good GUI, it's having a good setup, it's easy to use. And that's where I'll try to use those tools than like looking from commercial or open source. I would look for how much problem I'm able to solve, how much ease I'm into after using this tool, than going from like and then later I'll take it through my manager, like this is a budget we have and how we can solve this constraint.
Yeah, I think mine and Rennick's answers were with all else being equal. Would you do?
Yeah,
That's very
because the manager will get to a point that it definitely does not have the final say on the budget, right? And it definitely wants to help the company to cut costs, so in most cases, the comparison is key. That's one. And also to know that when it's commercial and what do you want to achieve. If it's just for a short period, for a short project, or for a short number of people, then let's just go, using the open source or the free tool or stuff like that. But when we know that there are more features that we want to implement, then let's go, with the commercial based approach. Yeah. Okay.
I think as well, a very hidden thing that also can come up is the security aspects as well of open source tools, because you don't know what little backdoors are in there, whereas a commercial tool potentially is a bit more of a good actor. But Sarah, it looks like you've got a comment there.
Yeah, I'm going to push back on that because I have been on projects with companies where we were using a closed source tool, not going to name names because I don't think I'm allowed to, and they had a massive data breach or a data leak. So I don't think that aspect actually applies. I would say I haven't had any major data breaches with the open source tools I've used thus far. And when there has been an issue, it's almost always been found, or at least people have been notified when it's been found very quickly, with most tools that monitor those sorts of things giving you an alert of, hey, you should upgrade this or stop using it now. Oh my God. So from my point of view, the open source community has actually done a much better job of security than the closed source commercial community. If anything, I would say the commercial community tends to rely a little bit heavily on obfuscation. You can't see it, therefore nothing's going wrong, but everything's going wrong. Oh my God, we all work in software.
Yes.
We know what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. So just to add to what you also said, let's even assume that there is a security problem on the open source. Before you get to start using any tool in an organization, we have the security team that always scan through and manages all your applications. So they control the application you're able to install, especially if you're using a company device. So they also make sure that those security are being checked on the application or on the new tool that you're using. So I won't really say that it's so much big when it comes to security issues on open source tool for testing. Yeah.
From my aspect, when I actually think about security and the open source tool, I would say when I actually go for this open source tools, they are much more transparent. Like if there is a issue, they will tell me, okay, that was an issue. But if you go with the like commercial tool, they may not be transparent, or they would try to talk in a way wherein it's not very transparent and clear enough. And when I actually deal with the open source tool, they will try to like fix it as immediately as they can. But with the commercial tool, it goes into the process and things like that, and it delays the whole process for you also. And you would be, I would be in the situation wherein do I need to fix my code or do I need to wait for them to fix their code? I would be in that situation, and I would be in the situation like if I'm actually merging my code with the change, and by the same time they are coming and they are merging, it becomes a production issue, another production issue. So, and like when I actually go and try with the open source tool, their test code, if it is like highly used open source tools like Selenium or any other tool, they are much more tested code. So, like if you go for the commercial tools, may not be there are a lot of users and they have been not been tested as much as like open source tool is being tested. So,
Yeah.
and then when we actually talk about open source tool, brings a lot of sustainability. So that's why I prefer or I like going more towards the open source tool.
Yeah, and we also have open source testers, people that we test a lot on open source applications. So open source tool gets more tested than even those privately owned products. Yeah.
If people want to get involved in open source testing for some of these open source tools, where can they go? Where can they find information about how to do that?
I would just
GitHub.
okay. So personally, there is open source, right? Open source platform itself where you can go to either contribute to a project, or you have a project already existing that you want to start up and get people to contribute to, invite people to to your own project, or contribute to projects. Basically, we have open source platform where you can see thousands and thousands of projects that you can contribute to, that you can test, that you can voluntarily give feedback on. I even I going back to why starting my testing, I would go on Play Store and App Store. I would download different products and I would start testing it, and they start sending feedbacks to the developer one by one. That was when I never even knew about open source platform. But when I got to know about open source platform, there are so many thousands of products that you volunteering to test, it's quite an advantage for them. So you can always do that. So, and also all these tools also have their community, right? And they will always let you know about the latest update that you can also contribute to your testing. So for example, I know that Postman has like one of those big community when it comes to a tool community. So whenever there is a new feature, they always have thousands and thousands of people available to test it. Same thing with Selenium, same thing with all of these tools. So first approach is get to be in the community of these tools that you are using. You can always contribute to their project. You can always test it. The second one is to join the open source application and then test and contribute to it. Yeah.
I would I would take the opportunity and talk about it. So I've tested a lot of open source tools. I would say when I was in the weekend testing session, there was always like people were coming and they were actually explaining about new tools, and we have to do exploratory testing and submit the reports. And I've seen in Android Play Store there are a lot of apps where it needs a beta testing. You can go and enroll yourself, and they will actually and then give you a feedback. even in those apps, if you're not enrolling yourself as a beta tester, you just give your feedback, whatever you have tested it. People like the people in the organization really take care of your feedback and try to incorporate those, because that's why those feedbacks are there. Like, as a user, where you are facing a difficulty, what challenges you're facing, is there anything which you're making, which that particular product is actually feeding you, like it's not reliable, it's very unsecured, sort of those. So that would be another place I would actually go and enroll myself and give the feedbacks. The other thing I could do is, like, I could go to the website, and that help menu, I can give the feedback over there. And then I've been in the programs, like big companies will have the big bug bounties, where you can actually find the bugs and you can report the bugs to them. And that's where, and you get the prize for that, saying that, okay, this is the bug. And there has been a lot of testing companies wherein they are actually running up for a schedule. Let's say they are asking, like, for this particular schedule, 1 hour, if you have, let's say, Mac, or if you have Chrome, you can test this particular software, and we will give you like €10, €20, whatever money they are giving you. So that way they can help you, and you are also doing some sort of open source testing over there. And there are a lot of startups which are opening day to day, and those people are not having the people to like budget to hire the tester, and they actually come and post in a lot of social media, we need people to test our software immediately, and we want a feedback. And it could happen with the big companies also. I've got the opportunity recently that Amazon one particular team was asking to test their particular web services, and since they were actually, it's just launching new, and they wanted the feedback, and that's where we went and I tested it, and I've given the feedback. So there are many various opportunity wherein you could enroll yourself and you can just give the feedback after using to the product.
Yeah. Just to add to what Trisha said, sorry, Sarah. The next one that, if you want to test, like if you just want to go right away, you can check out open source.guide. In open source.guide, you are going to see how you can join a particular project and contribute, where you can browse for different projects and contribute, or you can create your own project and request, for addition. And let's say right away, you also want to start contributing to projects. My best approach is go to Play Store or App Store, download the project. There is always the developer's contact. There's always the company's contact where you can always send your feedback to immediately. So those are like the two platforms I know you can go to directly and start contributing to project immediately. And who knows, you could possibly get, I've gotten paid before by a developer that I sent feedback to. I've also gotten internship opportunity before in one of those companies. So you just don't know what you might get as a benefit. Yeah.
Yeah. So all I have to say on this topic is that if you're interested in doing stuff like open source testing, a good place to start is actually looking at the open source projects you use. Most of them have a section on contributing to the project. And I know I jokingly spat out GitHub thing, but that wasn't a joke, actually. Most GitHub projects, especially on the mature side, or they're being used by a lot of people, or they get a lot of contributors, have a contributor section with instructions on how to get started, what they need. And you will see on some issue discussions that sometimes people have issues replicating issues. So one thing that you can actually start doing, and especially the larger projects where there's a lot of people who use the project, because frequently these large GitHub projects are actually only maintained by like 5 people, even though thousands of people are using it. So something that can be of great help there is, like, if you see an issue and the issue seems like a big deal, but the replication instructions aren't very clear, is replicate it yourself, figure out a way to reliably replicate it, and contribute to the thread that way.
Yeah. Callum, are you there?
There's
Very good points. We're talking so much about open source. Oh no.
We can hear you.
No,
we can hear you.
Now we lost you.
Now we can
Now
see
we
you, but
can't
not
hear
hear you.
but we can see you. No, we can't. We can't hear you. We can't hear you, sorry. Okay, it's a 1 sec.
He's just going
Yeah.
to try and come back.
Oh,
I'm
now
not
we can hear
entirely
you.
sure.
We can hear
Oh,
you.
Hear me?
that's
now?
really good.
There we go. Sorry about that. We talked so much about open source tools, so I'll move us along. But thank you so much for your thoughts on that. Tobias and Ramon ask, what do you think is currently missing from your testing toolbox?
What is currently missing?
I can take that.
Yeah.
From my testing toolbox, I think a lot of things are were missing. Like I could have versioning of test. Like how can like as the test is or like software is versioning up and down, I could have a software wherein I can versioning up and down my test also easily. I don't need to always update it. The same goes with the test data management. I could have a good test data management wherein I can actually use that particular thing for test data management. That could be one thing. The other thing I could think of, like the accessibility of a toolbox. Those are the things which I would look for in my particular thing, like is actually missing at like the most I miss.
Yeah, I think to add to that, I would say an automatic update. Yeah, an automatic update. I wish there is a tool that can automatically update all my software testing tools for me. I have this drive that I call my testing toolbox. So if I'm going to any company, I always have this this drive with me. They all that drive contain the first 10 tools I will install when I join any organization. So having especially those tools that you need to download on your system, so I just wish there's something that can automatically update everything for me. So I think that's the only thing that is missing in my own toolbox instead of doing it manually. Yeah.
I think for me, I tend to write what I'm missing, but something that I'm still not satisfied by is the state of documentation, specifically around like, especially if you're testing APIs, you have to test that documentation because frequently it's all people get. And while we have tools like Swagger that automatically generate documentation, that documentation is actually kind of useless without context.
Yeah.
So it's something that has to always be looked at, and with literally every change, it has to be checked. And I just don't have a satisfactory way of testing it at the moment that doesn't involve just manually looking at it constantly.
Yeah.
I think the human side of these things, like documentation, and context, is so important as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So Jazz, you remember from earlier, has been asking, so we talked earlier about trialing tooling. What's your strategy? And I think we touched upon it earlier, but just to get back into it, what's your strategy when you come to trialing a new and specific tool? And how do we find the return of investment as part of that strategy?
I'll go first for this one. So the first step is obviously evaluating what tools are even going to be in the trial to begin with. So usually we have a matrix of the things the tool needs to do, along with some other things that we consider for every tool, like, do the developers hate themselves while using it? If so, that's a clear no. And also price. Would we have the budget if we select this tool to go forward? Because if the tool is exorbitantly expensive, it doesn't matter. If the tool is basically God's gift to Earth, we can't afford it.
Yeah.
So assuming it passes all those and we have a tool or a set of tools that meet our requirements and we go forward trialing, the things that we are looking for is we usually start off like one team with one tool, and we'll have a couple different teams if we have a couple different tools. And we're going to be mainly focusing on, does it actually solve the problem? Because some tools look great on paper, but then when you actually use them, they don't.
True.
Or they are worse than what we had before. We get feedback from the teams on, how do you feel about this tool versus the previous state? Does it solve this very specific problem? What other feedback do you have about the tool? Like, we have seen tools that did solve the problem, but introduced other problems.
Sure.
And it's like that never ending hitting the gopher poles, being like, okay, we solved this problem, but we just generated 3 more problems. Can we resolve those problems? So a tool that makes it pass a trial is a tool that solves the problem and doesn't generate extra new problems that can't be solved easily.
Yeah. Just to also add to that, I would say that the tool that is a tool that will pass this check also has to be, which I think she has said to solve the problem, which I call a usable tool. I call it a usable tool in the sense of is usable, is durable, and is adaptable. Means that I can use it. Everybody in the team can use it. Um, I don't need to start taking a whole lecture all over again to use the tool, right? I don't need to start, getting a whole tutorial to start using the tool. I want a tool that I can use and can maintain and get the job done. So yeah. Trisha, you want to add something?
Yeah, I wanted to add something like I would actually go with the like first, what is the problem it is solving, and then I'll come up with the list of the tools. And when I'm coming with the tools, list of the tools, and I'm actually using those tools, let's say I'm using one particular tool for 15 days, and I'm actually writing what is a SWE, the strength, weakness, option, and threats for this particular tools in my context. Then I'll go with the next tool. I'll do the same thing, and when I come across that, then I'll see like, can I really use this tool? And from my perspective, is it easy to use? Is it like the whole team can use it? And then is there a good community support? Is that tool particularly reliable? Everybody is having the knowledge on that same tool. And like it's not costing too much of money. How much overburden it is actually solving us. Those are the things I'll do in the strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat, and that's how I'll go about it.
I think that whole thing of do we hate ourselves when we're using this tool, and do we like using it is really important there. So thank you so much. We're nearly coming to time, so I'll ask one more question, or I'll remain ask it. What is your favorite tool of all time?
There is no one favorite tool.
No one favorite. Oh.
I'm going to pick one, and it's going to be weird. So there's this tool called Galen Framework. And I don't say I like it because I'm going to use it always, but because it solves a problem in an interesting way that at the time that I found the tool wasn't actually a thing that I saw before. For those of you who haven't heard of Galen Framework before, it's kind of like a Selenium tool, except it focuses on the idea of testing via snapshots. Now, snapshots are normally awful, awful things, but Galen Framework does snapshots in only like a particular place. Like you tell it what identifier on the website it's looking for, and it only takes a snapshot of that component, which made it insanely helpful for this dashboard project I was working on, where the visuals were super important and very easy to fuck up. Oh, what's am I allowed to curse? So Galen Framework turned out to be a huge game changer. And while there are lots of issues with the tool, like I would like to just use its snapshot capabilities within a different tool. Like maybe we're a Cucumber project, not a Selenium project. But the idea that it took this very hated thing, because I personally hate snapshot testing, and turned it into something genuinely useful was incredible. So it's my favorite tool for that alone, even if I don't actually use it at all these days.
And then, Ibronka, did you have a favorite tool as well?
I've been trying to pick one in my head. So quite hard. But yeah, there is one tool I used one time, and yeah, I would say it's FreeMind, where you used to break down. I love it because I'm able to use it to break down projects. So when I joined a company newly, when I got to know about that tool, I was trying to understand. I joined the company newly, and I was trying to understand the entire architecture and then the flow of the testing and everything. So with the FreeMind tool, I was able to break down the entire feature, know what connects to what, and how one service is connected to the other. So yeah, I'm just able to break down the feature and then know how many scenarios, how many use cases, how many tests, cases I'm going to write for each one, just distribute it like that. And I have this big mighty map on myself. So I love it. So when anybody comes to me and said, oh, I'm trying to test this feature, I don't know what to like, okay, just go to that map. You're able to connect the dots together. So it's a great tool. Yes, I've not used it for a while, but it's still what if I want to do any project right now or a new one right now, that is definitely what I want to do. And I use it for documentation as well. So even if I want to write test case, I might just want to break down that particular scenario down into the smallest bit so that I can have bigger picture of it. So I would say that's my favorite, but I would say that's one of my go-to. But my favorite tool is still in the making. It's not yet out. Yeah.
Whoa, a cliffhanger. I know I'm not part of the panel, but I will say my favorite tool of all time is clumsy.io, which is a Windows tool for network throttling, which is really good for chaos engineering. And yeah, I've really enjoyed using that one. And my favorite tool is a tiny rock that I use to hit shells. Thank you, Romain. Well, on that note, we've hit time. So I'd like to thank all of you for being part of this panel discussion. Obviously, I believe you're all going to answer any of the unanswered questions that are in Slido in the club posts. So thank you in advance for doing that. And yeah, thank you so much. And I'd like everyone to give a big round of applause for Sarah, Ibronka, and Trisha. Thank you so much for attending this panel. And I hope people got a lot from it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Bye. So everyone, it's now time for the big break that was scheduled. So we're going to go away for a bit, have a bit of a break, recharge, get your batteries sort of like recharged.